So let's look at what China is doing. China is the world's sole manufacturing superpower with 35% of global output. That's astounding. China's state led economic development model and robust industrial policy has transformed it into what an influential European think tank calls, quote, the world's sole manufacturing superpower, making up 35% of global gross production, more than the nine next largest manufacturers um, combined. Now, China has seen world historic economic growth through a government led development model in which state owned enterprises control the natural monopolies and, quote, commanding heights, unquote, of the economy. State owned banks give favorable loans to strategic industries, and the state's robust industrial policy helps the country move up the value chain toward higher value added forms of production. Uh, this is interesting. The model, which Beijing officially refers to as a socialist market economy, has been so successful that a prominent European think tank has acknowledged that quote, China is now the world's sole manufacturing superpower, unquote. In 2020, China made up a staggering 35% of global gross manufacturing production. That is more than the combined output of the United States, which is 12%, Japan 6%, Germany 4%, India 3%, South Korea 3%, Italy 2%, France 2%, and the United Kingdom 2%. This is according to the research of Richard Baldwin, a professor of international economics at the IMD Business School in Lausanne, Switzerland, and the editor in chief of VOX EU, Vox EU, a publication hosted by the Europe based Center for Economic Policy Research, or CEPR. This is not to be confused with the Washington based Center for Economic and Policy Research, which uses the same acronym. CEPR is very influential in European policymaking circles and receives funding from France's central bank and finance ministry, as well as the European Central Bank, International Monetary Fund, and numerous private banks in Europe. The think tank represents the political mainstream in the European Union and is by no means and I quote, pro-Chinese institute. Certainly you're not a pro-Chinese institute. In every way you're trying to contain the prosperity of the Chinese and to make China look bad. This is what this is what Baldwin wrote. The US is the world's sole military superpower. It spends more than its military. All right, let me read that again. It spends more on its military than the 10 next highest spending countries combined. China is now the world's sole manufacturing superpower. Its production exceeds that of the 9 next largest manufacturers combined. Baldwin explained that even when output is measured at value added, that is, gross production minus the cost of intermediate goods brought to produce those manufacturers, China makes up 29%, even in those situations, of global manufacturing, compared to 16% for the United States, 7 for Japan, 5 for Germany, 3 for South Korea, 3 for India, 2 for Italy, 2 for France, and 2 for England. Baldwin added that this quote remarkable fact help us to understand current US China tension, right? He added that this remarkable fact help us to understand current US China tensions. So now China is doing well. China is manufacturing a lot of goods and services that the world needs. China is bringing a lot of its people out of poverty. You know, you look at 40, 50 years ago when the Europeans were showing you Chinese riding on the bicycles. Nobody could afford cars in China. People were riding bicycle to any and everywhere they wanted to go. Right? And that is what the European men and women they love to see in the global south. Yeah. Let them be dependent on us. And now that the Chinese are helping, the government is helping their people to emerge out of poverty and helping others in the global south to grow. Oh no, we got to contain them. No, that's a problem. That is causing tension because they are not like us. They're not supposed to look to live like us. They don't deserve. Chinese rapid industrialization through a state-led development model has coincided with the United States relative deindustrialization through a neoliberal economic model based on, here's the United States model, privatization, liberalization, deregulation, financialization, and unproductive speculation. Now, if you're a country wanting to grow, look at the American model and look at the Chinese model. Which is the best model for you to follow? You know, these are some of the questions that you have to ask yourself and ask your leaders in your country. Which is the best model? And you know, the Europeans are always showing up as, oh well, we have the best model. Look at your models over the last 500 years that put you to where you are today. Who wants to use that model? You know, I know that China, you know, is not going to Africa, picking up slaves to build their country. They're not doing that. That's not their model. I mean, Europe got rich based on they're stealing human and natural resources, slaverism. So you can't be coming up here looking like you're proud and everybody should follow your model. It's outdated. Nobody wants to use that. Seeking to stop China's rise, the United States government has levied many rounds of unilateral sanctions and waged what Washington insiders have referred to as a technology war against China, imposing exports restrictions in cutting edge sectors like 5G, semiconductors, quantum computing, and artificial intelligence. So, what actually happened when you in this modern world, when you try to contain people who are trying to have a better life, who are trying to improve their status in the world, they are going to find a way to improve their life. And no matter how much you try to clamp down and hammer and slam them down, they're going to rise. Western governments have pledged, Western governments have pledged to decouple from the Chinese economy and de-risk strategically important industries. So you're going to decouple. I mean, earlier on, one of your so-called experts said that the survival and the life of Europe depends on Russia and China. And now you're going to decouple, you know, cut them off. I mean, you want to have nothing to do with them. You ain't going to trade. You ain't going to do any more business with them. You're going to decouple. You're going to de-risk. All your industrial equipments that you were able to sell to China and Russia and all the cheap oil you were getting, you ain't going to do that anymore. So you're going to soak your economy. You're going to slam down your economy. Because if you can't sell those things, then you're going to put people in your country out of work. And who's going to buy them? I mean, I'm not saying that people around other countries won't be able to buy them, but China is a large country. You know, if Europe, I mean, America is not going to. China is almost 4 point, just a little under 4.5 billion people. Yeah, more than 4 times the population of America. So China is able to buy a lot of stuff from Europe. So you're putting your people out of work. You're screwing up your own economy. Okay, so however, as I continue here, the CERP research paper, Baldwin emphasized that the United States is much more dependent on buying Chinese manufactured goods than China is dependent on the US market to sell its exports. Listen, you're in Europe, don't worry about America. If they want to sink their economy, they sink their economy. Don't even bother put that in your paper. I don't see where it makes sense to even mention that. Deal with your own situation and your people. And I quote now here, in 2020, the US was about 3 times more exposed to Chinese manufacturing production than vice versa, Baldwin wrote. He added that the numbers are astounding. Baldwin continued, politicians may wish to decouple their economies from China. These data suggest that decoupling would be difficult. Decoupling would be slow, expensive, and disruptive, especially to G7 manufacturers. And yet, you're going to do it because the United States says to you, do it. And you're going to make your country go down, put your people out of work. People can't pay their bills, can't pay their mortgage because they won't be working because the United States tells you to do so. And you are great thinkers. I want to tell you this, man. You put some good high school gal or boy in front of you who know about geopolitics, and they'll tell you that your argument isn't making and your decisions ain't making sense. This is the eyeballer and our changing world.